Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the new TCM ECM Data Reports and Overview for CSBs. My name is Britt Welch. I serve as the Director of the Office of Community Quality Management and Improvement. Wish to welcome you today. This has been a project that I think has become very, very timely over the years. We've heard a lot of feedback, a lot of wishes for how the TCM and ECM reports could look. And so we've taken that feedback and we've tried to improve upon the reports. Let's start out talking a little bit about what we're after here today. So in terms of some of our goals, we're going to provide you with a bit of the background on the TCM ECM reports project. We'll also do a demonstration of the basic functionality of those reports. We want to answer questions that you may have about the report. So during the course of the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand, use an icon to do so, or pop a question into our Q&A function. We'll go over what the next steps are in the process. And as I said, please feel free to ask your questions or put those into the Q&A function that looks something like that little icon that I just showed on the screen there. That'll be towards the bottom of your screen. You are muted. Everyone's muted for this except the speaker at the time, but you can request to be unmuted, and we encourage you to do that as well, so everybody can hear your comment. Then at the end of the training, we have an 8-question survey that we're asking you to complete. It takes about 2.5 minutes to go through that. We have been finishing up around an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20 minutes or so. So we're not going to go over our time frame. And so we are allowing time at the end to go ahead and complete that survey for us. And the reason being is it lets us know how we did. And that's not just about the reports or the training, but both the reports and was this training helpful to you? So let's talk a little bit about the project. So the project team has consisted of my team, the Office of Community Quality Management Improvement, the data warehouse team, and the provider network support team. And I do want to say that it has been absolutely phenomenal to work with the data warehouse team. The way that has kind of played out is we would meet with them based upon here's what we've heard, here's what we've seen. We think these changes need to be made to the reports. And the data warehouse team, within a week, they were coming back to us and saying, is this what you're after? It's like, yeah, this is getting there. But our goals throughout this project have been to leverage Power BI to have improvements in the timeliness of the TCM, ECM data reports, to improve the reliability and validity of those reports, of the data for those reports coming into and out of the data warehouse. And then we've built in a visualization component, which you've never had before in these reports. What we're after is to really start bringing these numbers to life for folks. And then we have, for the first time, inclusion of row level data, or this would be individual specific data. And our feeling there is that this would help to improve the analysis and the monitoring of the data, along with problem detection and improvement. Throughout this process, we engaged 5 CSBs, one from each region, who have been tremendous to work with. They provided a lot of insights for us throughout the project, a lot of recommendations for us, and we really could not have gotten this project to where we are today without their help. And I do want to let you know that the 5 that participated with us that were willing to throw their hat in the ring on this included Danville, Pennsylvania, Hampton, Newport News, Henrico, Loudon, and Rappahannock area. So to y'all, thank you for your willingness to join us in this journey that we went on. They gave us 15 recommendations total. Of those 15, we implemented 13 of them. Now, there's 2 recommendations that were very cosmetic in nature. We couldn't get Power BI to make those changes. When we shared that with our 5 beta test CSBs, they were saying, well, this is not a deal breaker for us. We can move on. There's just kind of, if you could, it'd be great. But so we weren't able to get those last 2, but we did get 13. And some of those 13 were implemented as of last night too. So that data warehouse team has really been burning the midnight oil to help us get to this point. In terms of feedback, so we have done some little snippet presentations for groups like the Data Management Committee, the VACSB Quality Leadership Council, and some other places. And to just give you an idea of some of the feedback that we've gotten from those different presentations we've done, we really like the row level data. Useful tool for supervisors and staff. Great tool, will make my life easier. Never seen the data shown this way. Extremely helpful. This will help us be more efficient and learn more about corrections for TCM and ECM. This can help supervisors identify training needs for support coordinators. This will help us be more efficient and save time monitoring and drilling down on our data. We appreciate that you've taken our feedback. I can't believe how fast you've been able to do this. So Christy and I when we got that comment, we got to looking at, well, just how long have we been working on this? And it looks like we came down about 3 months, which, as y'all know, that's kind of warp speed to do something like this. So I've been very, very pleased to see how this has worked. I'm a person that puts a lot of emphasis on team, and seeing the data warehouse team, our 5 beta test CSBs, and the department come together on this project, in my assessment, has just been a beautiful thing to witness, to see how we can come together and pull together a fantastic project and end up with a very, very good product. And then perhaps my favorite piece of feedback, I'm nerded out over this, and yes, that did come out of the data management committee. So we figure we're hitting on all pistons there when we get a comment like that, right? Any questions on the background? Anybody want to throw anything in there? Got a question you want to ask about that? If not, then I'm going to hand this presentation over to my teammate, Christy Lambert. Christy is the QI specialist for Region 3. And part of what she'll be doing today is demonstrating the functionality of the reports. As a part of that, she'll show you the general layout of the report, what we call the different page views of the report, go through some of the basic sort features, along with the definitions, and just how's this data being calculated. So without further ado, Christy, I will stop sharing and turn this over to you.
All right. Morning, everybody. You should be able to see my screen. And what you're seeing right now, if you can't see it, please let me know. What you're seeing right now is what Power BI looks like when you first open the link and go into the TCM report. This is, I'll preface this by telling you, you'll see that this is in the test version. We have a couple of different versions, and this one is our test demo version. And it's dummy data. It's not actual data. There's not a lot of data in it. There's just a few quarters here and there for a few CSBs. So there's going to be some that don't have any data in this report for this demonstration. You'll see that Norfolk doesn't have anything listed. It's not because they didn't do anything in 2019 Q1. It's because there's just nothing in there for this test data. So just wanted to preface it with that. There are some pieces to this report that have PHI in them. And so I wanted to make sure that you realize that that's on here listed as John Doe. And with our security measures that are being implemented, you would only be able to see your information and not the other CSB's information, and vice versa. But several of the reports are aggregate reports for statewide information. They're no different from what you're already seeing, and they are open for anybody to see them instead of it being locked down as far as security. The good thing about Power BI is that you can't mess it up. You're not going to be able to go into this and make changes to data. You're not going to go in here and hit a backspace and erase a formula like you would in Excel, or lose something, or have to hit the undo button. Nothing like that is going to happen. You can change your view, change your sorts, change your filters, look at whatever you want to look at. It's not going to mess it up for you or for anybody else. You can always unfilter and unsort, and it goes back to just a standard view of it. And if I'm in it at the same time, I'm going to see what I want to see. I'm not seeing what you're doing. So that's the beauty of this Power BI report. It is taken directly from your CCS submission. When that submission comes through, and then it gets uploaded into the location where this Power BI pulls it from, DBHDS does not manipulate the data at all. All they are is the middle person that is moving one file from one location to another location. So it's your data. It's just being given back to you, hopefully in an easier way for you to see it, maneuver it, manipulate it, understand it, and use it. So that's the goal of the whole project, was to give you something back that would make it easier and make the data make more sense. We want our data quality to continue to improve. And so we're going to talk about a few things today that may help you do that. There also is the caveat, you need to know that we are not the experts on Power BI. So we're not training you on using Power BI today. We're just showing you the reports that are located in Power BI. We will talk about a few little tips here and there that will help you to utilize the reports. But as far as overall Power BI training, we do have some links to some online training that were given to us to utilize that will include with the training materials that we have for our specific reports. So you'll have that to be able to go back through, take a look, and see what Power BI can do outside of what we're showing you, because there's a lot of functionality with it that can be done. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start with our TCM report. This first page, you'll notice that each one of these reports that I pull up have different page views. So all the data for all of the pages is coming from the same place. It's just on how it's being presented and what the visuals are. Now, if you make a change on one page, it's not going to pull through on the next page. So you have individual sort features and individual filters to use on each page. If you are looking, if you look right now, we're going to get the filters cleaned up a little bit better than this, we hope. But right now it's showing filters on this page. But if I actually click in the table, it shows filters on this visual. And so it gives you more options to filter. So you do have a little more capability of filtering by different regions, by different CSBs. Again, this particular page is basically the exact same thing that you have been used to getting, only you've been getting in an Excel spreadsheet. You've been able to see every CSB, every region total, and the total for the state. Normally, there would be more numbers. These wouldn't have zeros. They might have some zeros, but normally there's going to be a few in here. And so just to keep in mind that the data that we're showing you today in the demo is all dummy data. So it's just, you can see I pulled back to 2019 Q1 because there wasn't any data in 2019 Q2. You can see it on the right-hand side of my table. So there's some data in there. There's not a lot. There's enough for us to show it to you just so you can get the feel of it and kind of get an idea for how it works. But for this report or this page, the only thing that's different is that these will collapse and expand. So you can collapse them and expand them. They give you the total per region, the total for the entire state, and then for each individual CSB. And the way this is calculated, in case you aren't familiar with it, this particular report looks for how many face-to-face contacts were there. If individuals did not have a face-to-face contact, did they have a telehealth contact? If they did not have a face-to-face or a telehealth contact, did they have an audio contact, and so forth and so on. Then it adds them all together and gives you a percentage for the face-to-face. And that's the number that we're looking for, is how many of the contacts were made face-to-face? How many, or rather, how many individuals had a face-to-face contact within the quarter? So your targeted case management is a quarterly report because of the stipulations with the service of there needing to be a face-to-face at least once per quarter. So this report is presented in quarterly format, whereas our ECM, when we get to that, you'll see that it's in a monthly format. You'll also see that we've left the face-to-face telehealth percentages on here. And on our other pages, we've left the face-to-face telehealth data. The reason for that is, even though we're not using the telehealth at this point, it was used heavily for the last 2.5 years. And there is a lot of historical data that is within this information. As you can see, it's pulled all the way back to 2019 just on this view. And there's data from all the CSBs for all of their ECM and TCM services back that far. So we wanted to be able to have you see anything that you wanted to see. And because there was so much face-to-face telehealth going on in the last 2.5 years, that was a piece of it. So we did leave that on there. Another thing to note with all of these pages and all of these visuals is that they have several things that you'll see here above the blue line that kind of pop up once you're hovering over it. There's two main ones that I'll mention. This one that looks like filters, it will tell you what is actually filtered on the visual you're looking at. So you're able to see, hey, do I have something filtered out of here that I need to be looking at, or are all my filters turned off? So that's an easy way to see that. And right now it's filtered for anything that's less than or equal to 100%, which basically is everything. I could remove that filter and the numbers would never change, but just so that you could see what it is filtered for. The other thing is the button next to it that says focus mode. I call this the pop out feature. When you click on that, it just pops out whatever it is you're looking at, makes it larger. You'll notice when we get into the other graphs and visuals that have been built in here, you can use these, screenshot them for presentations, just make them larger if you're presenting to someone on a webinar or anything like that, just to make it a little easier to see. There's also 3 ellipse, and when you click on that, you have several other options. One of those options is to export the data. So all of this information, any of these tables, can be exported into an Excel spreadsheet. So if you have someone that likes Excel, wants to work on it on their own, or if you use Power BI and you want to upload this data into your Power BI, anything like that, you can do that by exporting the data here. So we wanted to make sure that those different pieces were pointed out to you, that you do have those options if you care to use them. All right, so again, this is the basic information that you have received in the past. It's been on a spreadsheet in Excel and uploaded into Teams, and this is basically the same format, except it's got a little more maneuverability that you can expand or collapse the information. Your next view shows a visual of face-to-face and face-to-face telehealth. And again, we left telehealth on here just to give you that option. You can sort for any of the quarters. Once again, all of these, you can also pop them out to make them larger and put them back just by clicking on back to report. All of them also will have on all the visuals, the target for the measure is listed. So the target for TCM and ECM is currently 90%, to have face-to-face visits and in-home visits at least 90% of the time for the period of time. So this is that 90% of individuals would have a face-to-face visit if they are in TCM within a quarter. So again, the target is here at 90%. This is aggregate. This is statewide data showing how it's gone up and down and all around. And again, dummy data, so you can't count on these numbers being correct. But there is, you can see a correlation between the face-to-face versus face-to-face with telehealth included. But this does show you, for instance, on a couple of these, the face-to-face telehealth is a little bit higher because there was some telehealth in the dummy data that was keyed in, so that you could see that there is a little difference in different areas. Again, we're not doing telehealth, but that's there for your historic use. I'm going to skip the next two. We're going to come back to those and go to the face-to-face percentage by fiscal quarter. This report or this visual and the one below it, that's the fiscal year, are built the same way. So anything I say on one is also reflected on the second one, but I will show you the other one. For these, you're able to select a CSB and put the first visual, and then on the bottom left, the region, and the bottom right, the state. And the reason there's so many different things on here is because for statewide data, there were this many quarters that had information in them. For region, I only selected region 3. If I selected all, then there are probably more that are going to show up. Yeah, you can see all of them show up at that point. If I select one CSB, let's see, so Piedmont we know has data, so we can go down to Piedmont and make sure that it's the only one selected. It is. So Piedmont is the only one selected. You could add additional CSBs. If you are in any of these and you click on something and it deletes the one that you were on. So for instance, I clicked on Northwestern and Piedmont went away. Anytime you see that happening and you want to see 2 or 3 or 5, you hold your control key down and select any of the ones you want. And then it'll put them all on there, whichever ones you select. So that's one of the tips that we've come up with, that if you're wanting to compare different CSBs or different quarters, that you can do it that way. Again, this is data that you all have had all along. If you have someone on your team that likes Excel and has gotten the reports and has played with it, they could have also created this. But we wanted to make sure that we had something that was standardized to where everybody had access to it. Okay. On all of the reports, it also will show you the percentage within the bar or just outside the bar, depending on how much data you've got showing. If I hover over it, it's going to tell me exactly what the fiscal quarter was, what the percentage was, and what the CSB was. And you see you've got your target line for all of these at 90%. Originally, we wanted to put all of these onto the same graph, but that was one of the constraints with Power BI, is that we couldn't get them to upload it to the same visual. So we went ahead and made sure that they were on the same page so that you still had that option and you could still take a look at it from that perspective. Okay. And you can see as I sort, things will just, they change on the fly. And if you notice, see if I can make it take a 1 minute. You'll see a small wheel that turns. It's normally in the corner of a visual, in the corner of like a graph, or it may show up over here in the corner. And that's just telling you that it's pulling the data. Sometimes it happens so fast that you never see it, and sometimes it takes a couple of minutes for it to pull. You do need to remember, like I said, this has a lot of historic data. It goes back to 2019. It's every CSB. And what I'm going to show you in a minute, it's showing every date of service, every episode of service. So it's pulling a lot of information. So sometimes it's going to take a little longer than other times. We have these, we believe, set to where when you first open them, it will only open to maybe 1 or 2 quarters or 1 CSB. So it will load faster. But the more things that you put in, the more filters you put in, it will slow it down, because it's coming through so much information to get you what you need. If it's doing it for a couple of minutes and it doesn't seem to be making any headway at all, give it a couple of minutes, give it 2-3 minutes to try to pull everything. And if it doesn't work, our recommendation is to shut down that page and bring it back up again later. Just like IT would tell you to restart, because it's just that it's got so much data involved in it and it's trying to pull it all. And it will do that occasionally, but we think we have most of those kinks worked out, so it should not do it too much for you. Again, your fiscal year is the same as your fiscal quarter. It's built the same. It's got your CSB up top, your region to the left, your state to the right, all of the same filters. The difference in this is that if you go here and you'll select a fiscal year, and it will show you your entire fiscal year to date for that area. So whatever you have selected. So I have Norfolk selected and I have 2022 selected. So this is showing me from July 1 to June 30th of 2022. If I were to select 2023, it would show me July 1 of 2022 all the way through my last submission. So whatever I have submitted at this point. Obviously it can't put in June's because you haven't submitted June's. You won't submit that until next month. So there's going to be places within these reports, especially with the TCM, because it's a quarterly measure, that if you look at it before all of the submissions have been sent in for that time frame, it's not going to have all your information. It can't. It's only going to show what you've submitted. So your fiscal year is one of those areas, and your all measures is another. If you look at it before the end of the quarter and before all of your quarterly information has been uploaded, then you're only going to see it as of the date of your last upload. The important thing with TCM for that is that if you're looking at January, February, March, if you're looking at third quarter data and you look at it in March, it may show that there's a lot of people that have not had a face-to-face visit. Well, it could be that those people are yet to be seen in March, or they've been seen, but that data hasn't been uploaded from February or March yet. So you just have to keep that piece in mind when you're looking at the reports. And the last report we're going to show you today is going to show you your submission dates. So it's going to help you to be able to see when your last submission was. Your rolling year is your next one, face-to-face percentage rolling year. This one probably won't be used as much as the other reports, but it was added in as a convenience to be able to at any point look at where you are for the past 12 months. So what's pulled right now, you can see is 3/31/22. So that means that this data is pulled through the quarter that ends on 3/31/22. So this is through third quarter data. And it's pulling 12 months of data. So it's a full year, but it's not the fiscal year. It is from 4/1/21 all the way to 3/31/22. So at some point, if you're meeting and you're having a discussion and you're saying, hey, our targeted case management was a little off this quarter, how are we looking overall for the last year? What does that look like? At that point, you could pull up this report and it would tell you for one whole year, what is your percentage? All calculated together, all added together, what is it for one full year? So for this example, I've got 3 different CSBs pulled up because they had data for this quarter. And Norfolk is at 87.69%, and that's from 4/1/21 to 3/31/22. So we're able to say, hey, we had a bad quarter, but overall, we're at 87% for the year. So that's a little more helpful than just saying, oh, we had a bad quarter. Or, yay, we had a great quarter. We hit 100%. That's great. That's moved our percentage up, but where are we at for the year? So it gives you just another piece of information that you can dig a little deeper into your data, and you can take a look and see where you are overall instead of just going by the most recent information. And there's nothing wrong with the most recent information, especially if you've made improvements. Hopefully they'll be reflected in your most recent information, but sometimes you want to look back and you want to say, okay, so for a while, how are we trending in this area? So the 2 ways to do that again are to use this report or to go back into your face-to-face percentages here, this first report, and just knock out which quarters you want to look at. You can just put the quarters on there that you want to see, and it gives you a trend line. Okay, so the other things other than reports that are on here, we have a description tab. This gives you all of the columns and what the descriptions of those columns are, what they actually have inside them, because some of them are a little, interesting. We got FRST, FTF, FRM. So this tells you this is the first face-to-face from the current quarter. So this gives you a description of all of the columns that are used. Your measures calculation actually tells you how the data is calculated. So the number of face-to-face visits that are in that first chart that I showed you, this tells you where that number is coming from, where it's pulling from out of your CCS submission. All of them are on here. There's 2 pages of it because there were too many to put on 1 page. And the purpose of putting this with the report is so that it's handy. It's there. If you're in the report, you're looking at something and you're like, where in the world is this number coming from? Why do I feel like I have more people that should be listed here than what really are, when then my data is coming back to me? Again, we don't manipulate the data, so it's the exact same data you're sending in. So you can pull this page up and say, oh, well, it's coming from service code 329, or I'm sorry, 320. So maybe I put something in there that's different. Maybe my service modality didn't have 01 for face-to-face, Instead, it's got O2. So that's why it's showing up as non-face-to-face. So it just gives you the opportunity to dig a little deeper. You can click back and forth between all of these pages, and the only thing that it may do is change your columns on your, let me find one that has it. So I'll show you in a sec. It may change, like if you have changed the width of your columns, it may change them back to the normal, but it will keep your sorting that you've put on there, and you can just go back and forth. And so you get a better understanding of each report and each section of the report. Those are the main areas that are aggregate areas. They're open for everyone. Everyone can see that. Any CSB would be able to see any of that information that I've showed you thus far. The last two pages are a little different. These pages have PHI on them, meaning they have the person's first and last name. They don't have Medicaid ID or anything like that, but they do have the person's name. These are row level reports. When, for instance, this is for Colonial. When Colonial logs in, the only thing they will see is Colonial. When anybody else logs in, the only thing they will see is the CSB that they are associated with. The privileges are permitted based on email, and we are working a little more on that security piece, and Britt will talk about that in a little bit as well. But just so that you know that any of these, any of the information in the row level details and the days between quarter are set up with a security level so that you only see your CSB. There is one more tab or one more page view that is not showing in this demo mode. It's called the missing face-to-face report, and it is designed to show you individuals that if you select a quarter and the CCS indicates that they should have gotten a face-to-face visit, but they did not, that it will pull that information up so you can see who did not get a visit. That one is not here in the demo, but it is being finalized to go into the live version. So I did want to let you know that. In addition to that, some of these columns have changed. Britt alluded to that earlier, that there were a few changes amongst the columns, maybe the order of the columns, maybe the wording on the columns have changed a little bit from what I'm showing you now. The tutorial materials, the handouts that we will make available that demonstrate how to go through these row level reports, they will have the correct, what you're seeing in the live version. This test version is a little different, but it's not significantly different. Like I said, it might be a column has been moved from the 4th spot over to the 8th spot, or there might be a name of a different thing in the top of the column. But again, your descriptions have been updated in the live version to tell you what those are, and your tutorials that we give you will have the exact picture that you're looking at. Sans any type of little changes that get made between now and then. The basics of all of these reports are done. So anything else is mostly cosmetic and mostly just a little improvement that's come from these meetings. You guys are the last of about 150 people that signed up for the training. So we've gotten a little feedback along the way. And so if there's anything that is a quick and easy fix that would make it easier for everybody, then that may be changing as well. And you may see that reflected once the live reports come out. So for this report, again, this is row level details. For TCM, it is a line by line, every encounter is listed. For any of these types of tables, you have the ability to go in and slide your columns to make them smaller in case it's longer. Like for instance, this one's a little bit long, so I slid it so you can see everything on the same page, on the same view, and I don't have to scroll back and forth. So you do have that capability. You also have the capability to select the header for any of the columns, and it will sort them in ascending or descending order. You can also sort first name, last name. For this, it's all John Doe because this is our demo. But there are individual names that would be in here, and you'd be able to sort by last name to look at caseloads or anything along those lines, as well as service modalities. Any of these things you would be able to sort by. And again, you would only see your region and your CSB. In addition to the names, which was requested by the CSBs, To make it a little easier when you're drilling down your data, if you find somebody that did not get a face-to-face and all you have is a number code, well, then you've got to go and figure out where that code came from and look that up and crosswalk it. So the request was to put the first name and last name in so that it was easier and more useful, and you didn't have to go to someone else in IT to figure out who the person was that didn't get a face-to-face. So that's why that was added, and that's why those security levels are being explored and finalized. That's been our last little hurdle. The other thing that's been added was the staff ID number. Now in CCS, there is a staff ID that's generated to go along with each individual with your submission. We don't know the staff's names or the ID. It's not an ID that you've assigned. More than likely it's not. It just comes through with your transaction. And in 2019, it wasn't required. So there's no numbers here. But in the live version and the live reports, there are numbers here. So you'd be able to, if you wanted to, you could sort per staff ID, and you could see the number of contacts that a particular staff member had. You could see the number of face-to-face versus the non-face-to-face. So you can drill down into your data in a lot of different ways. It also has the service date, which tells you the exact date of service that was documented and submitted through CCS. And one other request was to have the type of care start date. So these are the dates that the person started with with TCM. And that way, if someone, say, doesn't have a face-to-face for a quarter and you're wondering why, it could be that they just started the service. So it would be a quick and easy way to take a look and say, oh, well, they just started the service 2 weeks ago. That's why they didn't have a face-to-face, or that's why they only had one encounter instead of having 4 or 5 like some of these other people have. So lots of different ways to maneuver the data, lots of different ways to look at it, to drill down a little deeper. You can look here and you'll see these numbers do represent individuals. So the first two, this person did not have a face-to-face during the quarter, but they had 2 non-face-to-face. You'll see the next one goes 4 lines. So this person, 366, they had 1 face-to-face and 3 non-face-to-face. And then you can look and see the days that they had those. So one thing you might notice is they had a face-to-face and 2 non-face-to-face on the same day. So when you're looking through your data, if you see a lot of services on the same day, it might be a question of, and especially if it was the same person, is the person just documenting different things throughout the days, different collateral contacts? Did the person key it in twice and not mean to? You know, maybe the non-face-to-face and the face-to-face was actually the same visit, and they keyed it in 2 times, once as a non-face-to-face and once as a face-to-face. There's lots of different things you can look at when you're trying to figure out, okay, if our percentages have gone down, why have they gone down? What's going on? Another thing you might notice, you won't see it in this data because it's sorted, but there might be telehealth instead of face-to-face. So if someone's got it in their head, they're still clicking that telehealth code instead of clicking the face-to-face code, then maybe that's where your numbers are off, because the numbers for your percentages that come out in this report are based on face-to-face contacts, not telehealth contacts. So there's a lot of different ways for you to look at this information and sort through it, move it around, see what it's telling you. You know, there's not one way that works best for everybody. So this gives you the functionality and the ability to just look at it in different areas. So that's it for the row level details. There's one more report that I can show you today that has days between quarter. So this table is set up the same way as the other table. The difference is it has the same demographic information, it has the individual's name, and then it gets to the first date of the current quarter, the first face-to-face contact, the last date, the last face-to-face contact of the previous quarter, and how many days apart those were. So you're supposed to have your face-to-face contact within 90 days with a grace period. So this way is an easy way to just sort and look and see, well, how many days were between our visits? This report and the other reports do not have the staff ID number. The reason is because this is looking at multiple dates of service per line. The row level details show one service per line and one date per line, but this one looks at multiple per line. So there could be two different staff that provided these services. Excuse me. So rather than trying to add in extra columns for every single service, it was just decided that this will make it cleaner. So you can look through here, and if you see John Doe had 116 days, you can go back to the row level detail, look up John Doe, and see what was going on. Who was the person that was working with him? What other services did he have? Maybe he had a lot of non-face-to-face visits. Maybe his parents said, nope, you can't come over. And so that's in there as a non-face-to-face. Maybe he actually did have a telehealth. You can dig down a little deeper by looking at both of those reports. The nice thing about this report is it also has this slide bar where you can slide and look at the number of days overall. You can also, when you're sorting, it'll mix them up. You can sort them in ascending. You can sort them in descending. You can change your range to only see the ones that were seen from 1 through 90 days. There's lots of different things you can do with this, and you can filter it again for whatever you want to look at. Your version will only show your CSB. It will not show all of them. These are the 3 that I had selected because they were the 3 that had data for this quarter. So you will only see yours. You won't even have an option to select other CSBs. When you hit this button for your filter and it opens up and it shows you the different CSBs that are available, yours will be the only one that it shows. So just know that that's the security level that's being built in there. For this particular report, one thing we noticed in the live version is that there are several people that for number of days, it may show 1,100 days between their visits, which means their first visit in the current quarter, they had a visit during the current quarter that you've sorted for. And then their last visit prior to that was 1,100 days prior. So that's an immediate red flag. That means something happened. The person wasn't coded correctly. Maybe they discharged and came back. Maybe they transferred in from somewhere else. Maybe they were supposed to change services and somebody didn't key it in and change their service. It could be lots of different things. So this is a quick and easy way to help clean your data. You're able to look at the number of days and it will show you the max. The max in this particular data is only 116. That's the max that's in this test. But it will show you the max for your CSB. And you can look at who hasn't had the service in 3 years because there's a reason. There's something that's not coded correctly. Because of that, you can fix it. It'll go back on your next submission and overwrite to July 1 for targeted case management data. So it helps you to clean up your data, to make your numbers look better, because you don't want somebody that your data is showing they haven't been seen in 1,100 days. So they're going to be shown as not being in compliance with the 90-day face-to-face visit. So that's going to count against you. So by going in and fixing those things and showing, oh, hey, they started the service, they haven't been in this service, then you're able to clean up your data. So it'll help you overall. Okay, so those are the different pieces of the targeted case management report. And I'm going to put a survey up or a quick poll just to ask some questions about what you feel like the best parts of this report are, and if you'll be using it, and if not, do you think somebody else within your organization would be using it? So if you can participate in this poll and just select what you think the best parts are, that would be great. This just gives us an idea to check the temperature and see, you know, what's working, what's not working. Okay, we got a couple of responses. All right. Okay, so I'll share the results. It does look like I haven't talked much about the timeliness of data, but there is a little bit of a better timeliness of this data. You all have 30 days to turn it in, to submit it. Historically, it has been a good 6 weeks after that before you've gotten it back from DBHDS in the form of a spreadsheet. So now when you're submitting it, once it's uploaded into Power BI, you're able to see it immediately. You don't have to wait on us to send it back to you. And we're working on the time frame between those two things, between your submission and the time that it's uploaded. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But it does look like that's something that y'all are interested in. The sorting capabilities, obviously, and the visualizations are really so much better with this than your Excel spreadsheet. Also glad to see that you guys are going to be the ones using it. So that's perfect. We wanted people that are going to be using it to be in these trainings and to see it. So thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions about the targeted case management or anything else that we're talking about, please put them in the question and answer box. And we'll move on to enhanced case management. So the good thing about the enhanced case management, it's a lot more complicated, but it was built after the targeted case management. And so a lot of the feedback from the initial 5 CSBs and from our office and from provider development and provider network supports, that feedback that came in for TCM was copied and mimicked into ECM. So it's very similar. You'll see the views are very similar, but you'll also see that the suggestions that were made on one were carried over into the second one. So it was a much easier process going through, especially with ECM being more complicated to calculate and more detailed information. So again, your ECM data, what you're used to seeing is an Excel spreadsheet with 3 different tabs, one for face-to-face, one for in-home, and one for telehealth. So this is what the information on your face-to-face tab has been in the past. Again, it's dummy data and there's not much in here. Piedmont has something in here and Northwestern has something in here, and that's it. But this is built just like TCM to where it has the abilities to collapse and to expand, and you would be able to see the totals based on the level that you have collapsed to. So if I collapse down to region 1, I would see region 1's totals. And it's only going to show me the same number as Northwestern because that's all that I have in the test data. But once it closes, you can see that there. So it closes and you can see it will show you the total as to where you are collapsed. Now the live version has one more line on it, and that's for the total state. So you have that ability to collapse to the total state and be able to see that as well as each individual piece. So again, this is open for everyone that has access. You do not have to have security access. You just have to have access to the report. It's no different than what you've had in the past. It's just that it's in a little bit more friendlier to use and impossible to mess up. So you can move things around and not have to worry about messing anything up. You also have a visual that goes with each one of these. So your face-to-face visual looks just like your TCM. You have your CSB at the top, your region on the bottom left, and your state on the bottom right. The one difference with ECM versus TCM is that you also have the ability to sort for a month. So you can select just a quarter and show all of the months in the quarter, or you can select just a month and show just that 1 month and where everything stands. Again, this has the ability to, anyone can see any CSB. This is no different from what you've gotten in the past. And if you had someone that liked Excel or liked Power BI, could take the data and manipulate it, they could have done this all along as well. But again, we wanted to make sure that you all had this handy and that everybody had access to it. It does show your percentages again. It gives you your target line. It has the same pop-out versions, so you can make them larger and smaller. You can export from all of these. You can also see what is being sorted by looking at your filter for visuals. And again, when you change items, it will change on the other areas, if there is any data in there. I have to preface that. If I were to take off region 1, then Northwestern would go away because I'm only looking at region 3 and region 5. And apparently Norfolk has no data during this time, or else they would show up on the same screen. So you're able to just really look at anything. One new feature that was added, there is this reset filter. We did look at that earlier and realized that it will reset, but it sometimes will not reset everything. So you do need to double check to see what has been reset. For instance, this has gone back to the default that we have it set at, to where it only pulls for 1 quarter and 1 CSB, and that way it loads faster. If I were to erase the quarter that we're looking at and erase the CSB that we're looking at, it's going to take a little longer to pull that information up. But it will come up eventually. But again, you may get a little wheel that's turning up in the top left corner of any of your pictures, your graphs, or your sorting areas that say, hey, I'm working on this. I'm trying to pull the data, because there is a lot of data. Okay, but very user-friendly as far as just select what you want to see. If you have one thing selected, like if I have just one region selected, I'm not going to see all of the other CSBs from all the other regions. I'm only going to see the CSBs from that region. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And again, in our live version, all this data is there. In our test version, we don't have a lot of data. So in the live version, this would light up like a Christmas tree with just rows and rows of color. So that is the equivalent of what you've had in the past for your first tab on that report. You have the exact same thing for in-home, set up the exact same way with the in-home visual, same way as the second tab. And then we also, of course, included telehealth for the historical reasons. This report also has your column description. This has been cleaned up to where it's not cut off at the end. So on the live version, you'll see this in entirety, so you can read the entire description. And it has the calculations. And this is one of the favorite pieces here. This has also been cleaned up, so it doesn't have all of the typo squiggly marks, and it's all lined up. But this shows you in the CCS information where the numbers are coming from. So if you're calculating your face-to-face measure, this is showing you what each piece is looking for, where those numbers are coming from, what section, what type of care it's looking for, what modality it's looking for. And then it's also looking at, it'll tell you what your numerator and your denominator are at the bottom. So again, this has been cleaned up on the new version and all typed out to where it's easy to read. And it's just handy. It's just handy to be there so that you can see it at any time. There's also the in-home calculation and the telehealth calculation. So they're all here. And again, they're all cleaned up nice and neat on the new version so that you can see everything and how it all is calculated. Okay. So the one thing that's different with the ECM that's in the security area is, again, the row level details. And as this one, as you can imagine, is a little more complicated to look at. And it has sorted to where it's going to take me a minute to find you exactly what you want to see. But the good thing with this is that, again, you can't mess it up. It's got sorting. It's got all these different pieces in it. We do have dummy data, so I'm going to have to pull for the exact CSB. And you can do that by selecting here. And we know that we're going to say, I think it's Goochland, and I believe it is this quarter or this month. And I would be wrong. So we have to look for data. So give me just a second and I'll find some data for y'all to look at. I have to make sure, there we go. Okay, good, we have some. So it has the same demographics like TCM had. It has your region, your CSB. It then has the individual's name. So it has first and last name again. This does pull and show individuals on the DD waiver and gives that to show that they are on the waiver. But in addition to DD waiver, you're looking for ECM. That's your main point for this report. So we scroll over to the ECM flag. Now, again, with this table, you can slide any of these to make them smaller, larger, whatever you need done to get what you want to see all on the same page. It does not mess it up for anybody else, and it doesn't set it up for anybody else. So just know that. So I'm just making it a little bit smaller. So your first thing that you're looking at is your ECM flag. So ECM flag means that they were in ECM, for the entire month that you're looking at and the month prior. Okay, so the current month and the month prior. And because of that, let me select 6 of 19. I'm only going to select one so that we have a really clear picture. Okay, so your ECM flag, these are the individuals that were in ECM for the entire month of June 19 and the month prior. Now this says last month ECM date. That's just showing when they started. So this is someone had typed in that information. Okay, so anybody that was in it for the entire time would have a 1 for ECM. And that means that that's included in the denominator. If I scroll down, you'll see this person. So this person has a 0 for the ECM flag. They were in ECM from 6/1 of 18 to 5/31 of 19. They were not in ECM for the month of June. So because they weren't there for the month of June, they were not counted in the denominator. So that's where this 0 is coming in. If they had been in the service through June 30, we'll say June 27th, so almost the entire month of June, they would still have a 0 here because they were not there all the way to the 30th. Okay, they would not have been counted. If they started the service, so we're looking at this, the current month is June, that's what I have it sorted for. So this column is, we're looking for June's. This column, we're looking for at least May's. So if they had started the service May 4th, that means they weren't there for the entire month of May. So they were not there for the full 2 months, so they would have a 0. And again, I apologize with it being test data. I don't have an example of that to show you. But we do have this one example to show you that does show they weren't there for the month of June, so they're not being counted. So that's the first piece of the ECM data. Then you move over to your other 2 pieces that we look at, which are face-to-face and in-home. So for your face-to-face, again, there's a face-to-face flag. And that flag means that they're included in your numerator. So ECM flag is your denominator. Those are all the people that are being counted. Face-to-face flag is your numerator. That's all the people that received face-to-face at least once in each month. So once in May and once in June. It also looks at the last day in May and the first face-to-face in June and counts the number of days between them. So it's looking for the 30 days plus the 10-day grace period. So as long as you're within 40 days, then you'll have a 1. And that means they are included in the numerator. With the days between, if it was 41 days, then this face-to-face flag would be a 0, showing that you did have a contact in May, you did have one in June, but you were outside of that 40-day window. So that was not within compliance with the measure, so it's a 0. Okay, let me see this question. The column for last month ECM date, as I understood this, when the individual started. What about individuals that have multiple start dates for ECM? They were in ECM for one reason and then close 90 days later, 6 months later, they're back on your ECM. It will tell the last start date, voice. So it's going to tell you, if as long as you close them out of ECM and then you reopen them in ECM, it's going to tell you the last time, the most recent time that they restarted in this report. That's where your calculations are going to come from, the most recent time that they started. Okay. And you also brought up a very good point. If you don't discharge someone out of ECM or cancel out ECM and move them back to whatever, it's going to show up in your data as someone that should have been getting ECM all along. And so if they're not getting those visits, it's going to go against you in your data. You may know that they're not in ECM anymore, but what you're submitting is still saying that they should be in ECM. So that's another way that you'll be able to clean up your data, is to check those types of things. Another thing that comes up with this is maybe you're like, I have 32 people. And so maybe this 32, this is my caseload. This is my ECM caseload. I have 32. You're only showing 27. Why? Well, it could be that they started 2 days late in the month, or they ended 2 days early in the month. And that's why our denominator is different. You could have 32 people that's on your caseload and we're showing 47. Well, that means there's some more people. There's what? Get my math in here, 15 people that are showing us they should have received ECM, but they didn't. And that just means that somewhere along the line, someone did not change that code in your CCS submission. The last piece for ECM is your in-home flag. All of these are going to be a 1 for your test data. So your in-home flag is looking for at least a visit in either May or June. So it's looking in May for one column and in June for the other. So at least one of the two. And it is looking for a face-to-face in both. So if, for instance, one of these was missing, if there was not a face-to-face, then this would be a 0 for in-home, because you have to have a face-to-face visit in both months in order to have in-home counted. So those are the 2 parts that it looks for in in-home: a face-to-face in both months, and at least one of those took place in the home. And again, it could be coded incorrectly. Someone could have coded that they had the face-to-face visit somewhere else, and they actually did have it in the home. And you can look in and see in the notes, it says very clearly that I went to John's house, saw him, looked at his bedroom, talked to his parents, whatever. But if you don't key it in as taking place in home, it's not going to show up in your data. So it's very important for you to be able to pay attention to that. But this report will now give you the means to go in and clean that up. You'll be able to take a look, because remember, not only can you see which ones have the face-to-face, which ones have the in-home, but you can go back over here and see their name. And so you can go in under that individual in your EHR, in your submission, and correct whatever the problem is. With ECM, there's a much shorter correction time. It will not overwrite all the way back to July 1. We are still exploring that a little bit to see exactly how far back it would correct. But as of right now, as soon as you get your data, if you look in and look for those key pieces, and you look and say, hey, you've got 17 more people than I have listed for ECM, then go ahead and make those corrections immediately so that it will be reflected in your data. And of course, we do have the telehealth still on here. Again, it's just on there for historical reasons. But in this case, you might have someone that has said, hey, I saw them on telehealth, instead of marking that they saw them face-to-face. And this will be a really easy way to see that and to be able to look at that. Let me see if I have anybody. Going to check and see if this particular view or this quarter showed anybody ECM. No, it does not. Oh, it might. I'm trying to find any more anomalies that you might find. but there's no data for Allegheny. So I apologize. With us using the test data and making them all say John Doe, we also did not have as much data in here to look at as some of the other stuff. But again, your live data is going to have numbers everywhere. You're going to have all of this information here and be able to look at it. Again, the live data version that you will have access to once it's made public, the columns may change just a little bit. There may be a new order to them. There may be another name on them, but again, it's just an improvement, and the tutorial materials will have that in there. We're working to update those as well to make sure that they match what you're going to actually be seeing. Okay, so that is all on our ECM. We're going to open up an ECM poll for telling us, what you feel like the best pieces are for that and who's going to be using it. And we'll double check. So Carrie says, wonderful, the magic of Power BI. And I think that is a good way to look at it. We've been amazed at what it can do. And if you have the ability, if you have your own Power BI, it's great. But we did want to make sure that this was available for everybody. Any chance this will be expanded to provide dashboards about other issues and services? So we're going to send you a survey and give it the link to you at the end of this that has that question on there. I know in previous sessions, people have asked about the WAMS dashboards, the WAMS reports that get put into Teams. So any of those things that you're interested in, make sure to indicate that on that survey. We're sharing that survey with the data warehouse group and with the other powers that be, so that they might be able to take a look at it and say, hey, if this works, great. Like Britt said, we're kind of the guinea pigs that we were starting this first. So if it's successful and it's working and it's useful for everyone, then if we can expand it, that would be wonderful. That would be the best case scenario. Again, it looks like sorting capabilities is a favorite feature for everybody. And you all are going to be using this report as well. So appreciate that. Glad to hear. And there's one more report to show you. And this report is not ECM or TCM. It is your CCS3 load dashboard. So this report actually shows the last submission, what submission month, what was being submitted, and the import date of your data through CCS. There's several other tabs that I'm sure if you're involved in CCS submissions that will be very interesting to you. But for our purposes, this is the main piece. It's the submission date and import dates. For us to be able to say, hey, if I go in and look at my TCM report, how do I know everything is in there? So once you submit it and it is imported, it's in there. So knowing that if I looked at my data after 6/12, all of my, so this is submission month, April, all of my April data is updated. So that's just an example of how you might use this report. Because if you go in the middle of a quarter, obviously your TCM is going to be a little different. If you go in and you're like, is August in there? Is it here yet? This way you'd be able to click on this particular report and see, is my August information updated? So this will be made available as well for everyone to be able to see that. And again, we're working on that submission date to import date and the difference between those two, and trying to get creative and find some ways on this end and on you all's end that might improve those areas. So know that that is still a work in progress as well. Okay, if there are any more questions, please feel free to put them into the question and answer section. And I'm going to turn it back over to Brett.
Thank you, Christy. I saw we had a couple of questions in the Q&A. LaVoice, Carrie, did y'all's questions get answered sufficiently? I'll take that as a yes. Let's talk next about some of the next steps. And am I sharing my screen correctly? Can y'all see that okay? Christy, can
Yes,
you?
yes.
Just want to double check. So yeah, let's talk about some of the next steps. And one piece of this is security of PHI. So with that row level data, we really have to make sure that we've got the security features locked down. And one of the things that struck me was Okay. So I work for John Malone at Harrisonburg, Rockingham. I get access to this report. I leave Harrisonburg, Rockingham, um, and they can flat shut me down for accessing information specific to the CSB. But this report is something that I was accessing through DVHDS. How do we solve that problem? And so in our discussions and whatnot in-house, what we identified was we need to have an industry standard identity and access solution. I've given an acronym here of ISIAS because we're nothing without our acronyms, right? That being the case, Microsoft has a solution called Active Directory. Many of y'all may be familiar with that. That's one of many that are in the marketplace. What we're after here with this particular aspect of it is that we've got to have verification that each CSB does have an acceptable solution. So to begin assessing that, we formed an ad hoc committee of the DMC. We met on June 8th. We'll meet again tomorrow. But part of what we have to determine is which CSBs have a solution and which CSBs have no solution. We know there's a few that don't have a solution, such as this. And as a part of that, the department is also looking at some possible funding options that could help defray the cost of having that solution, perhaps even purchasing the whole solution for a CSB. So that's some stuff that's also going on in the works. But we've really got to have that solution in place before we can release all the row level data systems. You've got to have that security locked down. Now, with that meeting tomorrow, my gut feeling is we're going to have some decisions made at that meeting because we've really had this ball rolling very quickly. We want to keep that ball rolling and not just have it, just stop rolling at all. We don't want that at all. Nobody wants that. Now, I will tell you that the aggregate reports, that is without the row level, without the PHI data, they're going to be stored with the Q&O reports. And we're actually tossing around the idea of changing the name from Q&O to something that's much more descriptive, such as Data Hub. So that's where everybody could go to pick up their various data reports. Some other next steps. Additionally, we discussed packaging different tools for you to use as a part of utilizing these reports that we put out. One, we've recorded this webinar. Christy talked about some tutorials that show some written tutorials that she has put together. Also talked about the Power BI tutorials. Again, we are not the experts on Power BI. And as the guinea pig project, we've been having to learn Power BI. Y'all are going to have to learn it too if you don't already have the experience with it. It can be done, I assure you. We also are putting together a FAQ that will be packaged with the other tools that we'll send to you. And then as kind of the final backup to help you out, my team, Office of Community Quality Improvement, will be providing consultation and technical assistance. But what this does mean is that y'all, the CSBs, you've got to get in and play around with this data. Again, you can't mess the data up. It's there. So you're not going to delete anything or mess up any formulas or anything like that. But get in and play around with it. And the reason being is there may well be one CSB that goes in and they find that they can get a cut of the data that has a lot of meaning to them and their organizational goals, but that may not be the same as another CSB. So you now have the ability to go in and start getting different views, cuts of this data in a way that is much more meaningful to you than possibly it ever has been. So that's something that we're very, very excited about, that y'all have that opportunity to do that when you did not before. And then I guess the $1 million question is, when will the live CSB data be available? And we're looking at mid-July. So not too far off for that. Any thoughts or questions on that at this point? If not, then I do want to mention again, we've got the 8-question survey. Take you about 2.5 minutes to complete that. And this is to give us feedback on the reports, as well as how did we do with the training that we provided today. Please complete this because we do need to know how we did, both on the reports and in the training. Christy will pop the link for the survey into the chat feature. I think right now everybody's chat may be disabled, but we'll change that so that you can go in and access that. We are way ahead of schedule at this point, so please feel free to take some time, go through it now if at all possible. If you can't get to it now, we will be sending out an email with the survey link in it as well. Please complete that. And now we're at any sort of questions or comments. What are your thoughts on this? Britt, what were you thinking? This is the best thing since Sprite. What are your thoughts?
So LaVoice had a question, who in the CSBs will have access? LaVoice, initially what we've done is looked at who has access in Teams to the case management folder or to the case management files under that channel, because they were the ones that already had access to it. But essentially, I believe it's going to be up to each CSB who you want to have access, who needs access to it.
Yeah, and just keep in mind your security consideration as you do that. And I'm sure your IT folks will be all over that. So thank you for that question. LaVoice, I know you had another question, as did Carrie. Did both of y'all's questions get answered? No, it won't be directly to Power BI. That's a program. What I would suggest, LaVoice, is look at those Power BI tutorials, and thank you. Look at those Power BI tutorials. You just got to get in and play around with it. There's no quick fix on this. I wish there were, because I know sometimes I get kind of worried. Oh my gosh, I'm in over my head on using this technology stuff. But no, it's not as bad as what you may think. Get in, get your team to play around with it, see what fun stuff you can come up with in terms of views of that data that you like. And then, of course, if all else fails, come to my team. And the reason for that is, like I said, we're learning how to do Power BI too. Is that helpful at all, LaVoice, or? Carrie, I didn't see your last comment. Sorry.
Oh, she said her voice was turned off. She was muted.
Oh. Okay. Carrie, do you want to make a comment? And you might still be muted, Carrie. There you go.
I'm muted.
Say again, please.
I think I'm muted. I think I got to do that. No, I think you answered my questions, but also just the potential for this level of data analysis and in real time is really exciting. I'm really glad to see the efforts to think about data security as well. But to have data being able to be accessed real time is sort of a game changer.
I think so too. And I think this is something, without a doubt, this is the direction the department wants to go in. And that's a big reason, Carrie, why I was so excited about us being a guinea pig to do this. Because this is something, in my estimate, the time that I've been working with the department, this is something that we've heard an awful lot about, some changes that needed to be made to make this more useful for our CSBs. Because I mean, let's face the facts here. Y'all are in the trenches every day. Y'all need this data to be able to indicate to your in-house, how are we doing? Where are some problem areas? Where are some things we need to do differently? And if you've got the data to guide you in determining where the problem areas lie, then that just puts you in a much better position for doing what you've been entrusted to do. And
yeah, I don't know if you can hear me or not. I actually, that was one of my questions. I thought I might have actually heard incorrectly that it's real-time data and that you can actually clean up and correct. So I didn't mishear that, right? That's actually the case.
So, Christy, you want to take this on the cleanup, please?
Your TCM, when you submit each quarter or each month, at the end of each month, or whenever you submit, and it overwrites back to July 1 for your TCM. So anything that you correct will overwrite back to your July 1 date. Your ECM is a little different. It pulls from different areas and Because of the way it pulls, it won't go all the way back to July. We're still trying to figure out exactly how far back it will go. At this point, we believe it'll go back at least a month. So if you look at your reports when you have access to them and go ahead and check and make any corrections for submissions, then it should go back at least for that month. But again, we're trying to find out exactly how far back that'll go. And as soon as we find out, we're going to make sure to put that in the tutorial information too.
Oh, yeah.
But that's a significant improvement for both of those over what we have now.
Mhm.
So that's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that.
Hey, Britt, can I just say, I think the question was, is this real time? And it's not exactly real time, but it's getting closer to what we would like it to be. So just wanted that to be clarified.
Yeah, that's a good
Good point.
point. Yeah, I think when we get with the sunsetting of CCS, which to my understanding, that could happen as soon as this time next year. And then specifically when the data exchange, which is, that's a little while off, then I think we start hitting on that real time data. But I can tell you, we were in a meeting yesterday and I was learning information that I was just unaware of is going on behind the scenes on a broader scale around data. And I was very impressed, but I also walked out thinking there are an awful lot of moving parts here that got to be in sync with each other that I just had not conceived of before. So I can attest there's an awful lot of work going on for us to move this along as quickly as possible and get it into a place where it's really helpful for our CSBs and as well as the department. Other thoughts or questions?
Britt, how will the recording be made available? So if we have staff that weren't able to join one of the trainings this week, will there be a chance for them to view the recording?
Oh, absolutely. And you share that with whomever you wish. But we're going to package that with all the other materials that we have come out. We were hopeful, we were thinking we might be able to get the package out to y'all tomorrow. Probably not tomorrow. I think I was being a little over hopeful on that. Probably Thursday of next week is more realistic at this point. And if we can get it sooner, we'll do it. But it will be packaged. A link will be established for you within that packaging. So you can just share that link with anyone that you wish.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure. Christy, did I talk out of school on that?
No, that's right. And it's because Data Warehouse keeps making improvements. So we have to keep updating everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the feedback we got from those 5 CSBs has just been tremendous. And I mean, we're trying to get every single thing in there we can that will help y'all. Because again, y'all in the trenches and y'all do a great job. Because I see it, y'all are the eyes, the ears, the hands, the feet, and everything that keep this engine moving. And without y'all, it doesn't happen. So we want to get you what you need. Any other thoughts or questions? How are we doing on surveys, Christy? Can you take a look?
I've got a couple that have come in.
Okay. All right.
I like that you say it's user friendly, that we can't break it, because if it could be broken, I would probably break it.
LaVoice, that is my biggest concern when I sit down to something like this. I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then I'm going to get emails and chats and everything else. What did you do, Britt? No, you can't do it. You can't break it. So just get in there, roll up shirt sleeves, get you a cold drink, get after it. Just go have some fun.
And if something doesn't look right, you probably have it filtered. So just take the filters off and look at it again.
Yeah, it's nice that it kind of mirrors some of the features similar to what we're already used to for Excel. So
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Without erasing formulas, which I was very prone to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you guys have a moment to fill out the survey, we'd appreciate it. All the feedback is welcome. Any feedback we can get is welcome at this point. And otherwise, we're good. We're done with the presentation.
Yeah, appreciate y'all being here. Thank you. And thank you for the hard work you do, good work you do.
Yes, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Y'all have a good rest of your day.